Welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at the global economy and the tech world.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's start with the economy. Some of those indicators are looking a bit shaky.
Oh, yeah. In what way?
Well, U.S. GDP growth, it slowed down last quarter, more than expected, actually.
Yeah.
And Europe's showing signs of weakness, too. Some countries are even seeing growth stall completely.
That's concerning. And on top of that, it seems like the Fed's rate cuts aren't really helping borrowers much.
Yeah, it's a strange situation. Mortgages, car loans, credit card interest rates, they're all staying high, even though the Fed has cut rates 3 times.
So why aren't the rate cuts working like they're supposed to?
It's complicated. The Fed's trying to get more money flowing through the system, but there are roadblocks.
Roadblocks like what?
Well, banks are hesitant to lend money, for one.
Hmm.
Businesses are being cautious because of all the global uncertainty. And then you've got inflation eating away at any savings people might get from lower rates.
I see. And now the Fed has decided to just hold rates steady instead of cutting them again.
Right. It looks like they might be changing their strategy. Maybe they're realizing that inflation is a bigger problem than they thought.
So what happens now?
We'll have to wait and see if holding rates steady is enough to control inflation or if it'll cause a bigger slowdown in the economy.
Okay, well, let's switch gears and talk about tech. IBM had a great week on the stock market.
Oh, yeah, they had their best day ever, actually.
What happened?
Their earnings report was really strong. Turns out businesses are really interested in using their generative AI products.
So that's good news for IBM.
Definitely. It shows that there's a lot of potential for growth in the generative AI market.
What about Microsoft? How do they do?
They actually beat their earnings estimates.
So it was a good week for them too, right?
Not exactly. Their stock actually slumped because investors weren't happy with their revenue outlook.
So even if a tech giant beats its earnings estimates, it can still have a bad week on the market.
That's right. Investor sentiment can be fickle, especially in the tech sector.
Speaking of tech, there's a Chinese company called DeepSeek that's been making headlines.
Oh, yeah. What are they up to?
They're claiming that their new AI model can outperform OpenAI's latest model, but at a much lower cost.
That's interesting. If it's true, it could really shake things up in the AI world.
How so?
Well, it could make cutting-edge AI technology much more accessible and affordable,
Yeah.
which could be great for smaller businesses and organizations.
It could also put pressure on companies like Microsoft and Meta that are investing heavily in AI.
Exactly. They might need to rethink their strategies if DeepSeek starts taking market share.
And what's OpenAI doing in response to this new competition?
Well, they're busy partnering with U.S. national laboratories.
What are they working on together?
They're exploring how AI can be used in scientific research and to improve nuclear weapons security.
Wow, that's a pretty big deal.
It is. It shows how powerful AI is becoming and how it's starting to be used in really sensitive areas.
It also raises some ethical questions.
For sure. We need to make sure that AI is being developed and used responsibly.
Okay, well, let's bring things back down to earth for a minute and talk about something that affects a lot of people. The Social Security Fairness Act.
Oh, right. That's been a big help to retirees.
Yeah, some people are even getting thousands of dollars in back payments.
It's great that they're finally getting the money they deserve.
It's a reminder that even small policy changes can have a big impact on people's lives.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we have to end on a sad note. There was a terrible plane crash near Washington, D.C. this week.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, everyone on board was killed. It's a reminder that life is precious.
It really is. Our thoughts are with the families and friends of the victims.
Absolutely.
It is tough to hear that kind of news, but I guess that's why we do this, to stay informed on what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to some individual company performances. Mastercard had a really good week.
Oh, yeah, their earnings were strong. That's usually a pretty good indicator for the economy as a whole.
Oh, so.
Well, it suggests that people are still spending money, which is encouraging, considering those slowdown concerns we talked about.
It's good news for the fintech industry too, right?
Definitely, fintech relies heavily on consumer transactions, so Mastercard's success bodes well for that whole sector.
What about Southwest Airlines? They're expecting slower cost increases this year.
That's right. They swung to a profit last quarter thanks to lower fuel prices.
It's a cheaper flight soon.
Possibly. Lower fuel costs usually lead to lower airfares, but they're still expecting some inflationary pressure, so I wouldn't get your hopes up too high just yet.
Okay, fair enough. Now let's talk about Nokia. Their stock is doing really well.
Yeah, it's heading for its best performance in months. Seems like their mobile business is finally stabilizing.
That's good to hear. What's driving that turnaround?
It seems like demand for telecom equipment is still pretty strong, even with the global economic slowdown. Their resurgence could even signal a broader recovery in the telecom sector.
Interesting. And one analyst is saying that investors shouldn't sell Apple stock even if their earnings report is bad.
It's a bold prediction. Their earnings are due out tomorrow, and a lot of people are expecting them to be pretty dismal.
So why is this analyst so confident?
They're taking the long view. They believe in Apple's brand loyalty, their ability to innovate, and their strong financial position. Basically, they think Apple will weather any storm.
Makes sense. Comcast, on the other hand, didn't have such a good week.
No, they didn't. They reported disappointing results for broadband and Peacock subscribers.
What are they going to do about it?
It seems like they're shifting their focus to mobile. They're hoping to make up for those losses by capturing a bigger share of the mobile market.
So they're adapting to the changing times. It's interesting how Meta is responding to DeepSeek's challenge.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg has made it clear that they're not going to slow down their AI spending just because there's a new player in town.
So they're not intimidated?
It doesn't seem like it. They're confident that they can maintain their competitive edge.
It's like an arms race in the AI world. Now let's get back to the Fed. They held interest rates steady, but they're also less confident about inflation.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed message. Holding rates steady suggests they're cautious about the economy. But their concerns about inflation suggest they might need to raise rates soon.
It's like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Exactly. They're trying to find that sweet spot where they can control inflation without causing a recession.
Well, what about European Central Bank?
They actually cut interest rates, but they also issued a warning about the weak economy.
So they're facing similar challenges to the Fed.
Yeah, they're trying to stimulate growth, but they're also worried about inflation. It's a tough balancing act.
Okay, back in the U.S., jobless claims have dropped.
That's usually a good sign. It means more people are finding work.
But could it also be a problem?
Potentially. It could lead to higher wages, which could push inflation up even further.
So the Fed needs to keep a close eye on the job market.
Absolutely. They need to make sure that the economy is growing but not overheating.
And now there's a rumor that SoftBank is going to invest billions of dollars in OpenAI.
Yeah, something like $25 billion. That's a huge vote of confidence.
What would that mean for OpenAI?
It would give them a lot more resources to develop new AI technologies. It could really accelerate their progress.
And what about the IPO market? It seems like things are starting to pick up again.
Yeah. Twin Peaks, the sports bar chain, is going public.
Really?
Yeah. It's a sign that investor confidence is returning.
So maybe the worst is over.
It's too early to say, for sure. But it's definitely a positive sign.
Okay, now one analyst is saying that there's a buying opportunity in the Bitcoin mining sector,
It's a risky investment, but it could be a good time to buy low.
especially after the tech sell-off we saw this week.
Yeah, some of those Bitcoin miners are trading at a significant discount.
Okay, and back to AI for a minute. OpenAI is also working with national labs on scientific exploration.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. They're hoping to use AI to make breakthroughs in medicine, energy, and materials science.
It sounds like AI has the potential to really change the world.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
But we need to make sure that it's used for good.
Exactly. We need to be careful about the ethical implications. Okay, moving on to some legal news. A judge finally ruled on that massive Allen Stanford Ponzi scheme.
Wow, that case has been going on for years.
16 years, to be exact. It's a reminder that financial fraud can have devastating consequences.
And it highlights the need for strong regulations to protect investors.
Speaking of investor protection, some tech and consumer groups are urging the government to keep certain rules in place for AI testing and transparency.
Yeah, they want to make sure that AI is developed and used responsibly.
So transparency is really important.
It's crucial. It helps to build trust and ensure that AI is used ethically.
Now let's talk about Tesla. Their stock is up, thanks to Elon Musk's claims about robo-taxis.
He's always been a big believer in self-driving technology.
But not everyone is convinced that he can deliver on his promises.
Yeah, some people think he's over-promising and under-delivering.
And there's still a lot of regulatory hurdles to overcome.
Right. Self-driving cars are still a long way from becoming mainstream.
Okay, what about Levi Strauss? How do they do?
They beat their earnings estimates, but they're worried about the strong U.S. dollar.
Why is that a problem?
It makes their products more expensive overseas, which could hurt their sales.
I see. And what about Shell?
They actually raised their dividend, even though they missed their profit forecasts.
So they're still doing pretty well.
Yeah, they're a solid company with a long history of profitability.
UPS, on the other hand, had a rough week.
Yeah, their annual outlook disappointed investors, and their stock took a hit.
What happened?
It seems like they're facing some headwinds. rising costs, labor shortages, and increased competition.
So they've got some challenges to overcome.
Definitely.
Okay, well, let's end on a positive note.
Yeah.
There's a new breast cancer treatment that's showing a lot of promise.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. It could really help a lot of people.
And it's sent the stock of the company that developed it soaring.
It's a reminder that medical innovation can be incredibly rewarding, both for patients and for investors.
It's been a wild ride today, hasn't it? We've talked about everything from the Fed's rate decisions to Elon Musk's robo-taxi dreams.
It's a lot to keep up with. But that's the world we live in now. Constant change and uncertainty.
Exactly. So what are the big takeaways from today's deep dive? What should our listeners be thinking about as they head into the weekend?
Well, the first thing is that the global economy is definitely slowing down. Growth is weak in the US and Europe, and it's affecting businesses and consumers alike.
And we saw how this uncertainty is impacting the tech sector. Some companies are doing great, while others are struggling to adapt.
The rise of AI is a major factor in all of this. We talked about DeepSeek's potential to disrupt the industry, and OpenAI's work with national labs on everything from scientific research to nuclear security.
It's an exciting time for AI, but it also raises a lot of ethical questions that we need to address.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that AI is developed and used responsibly.
And of course, we can't forget the human cost of all of this. We started the show with news of a tragic plane crash, a reminder that life is precious and unpredictable.
It's important to keep things in perspective, even when we're talking about economics and technology.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged. The world is changing faster than ever, and it's up to all of us to keep learning and asking questions.
Well said. And that concludes our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Until next time.